I also would like to inform to all members that the Secretariat invited delegations to register in the speakers list prior to the opening of the Assembly. The member interventions under Agenda Item 5 have been scheduled according to this demand. But as mentioned earlier, I will give the floor to the delegations in the order of the speaker list provided by the Secretariat. However, should we have requests from members already on the platform to be speaking first and those having sent the recorded video. Let me also inform the Assembly that His Excellency Mr. Rolando Castro, Deputy Minister of Energy and Environment from Costa Rica, will also be assisting me in presiding during this session, since probably I will have to leave before the end. In order to ensure the highest level of participation, speakers are invited to limit their interventions to 3 minutes. I will try to keep the list as you have already known it, starting by Fiji, Algeria, and Portugal. So Fiji has the floor, but before giving the floor to the Fiji's representative, John Usmel, Minister for Infrastructures and Meteorological Services, I take this opportunity to congratulate Fiji for the latest appointment of the Ambassador Nasachem in Cannes as the chair of the Human Rights Committee in Geneva, very precisely yesterday. Fiji, you are combining very well this aspect of the climate impacts and the way we can combat the climate sources, your sources of the climate change with this very human relevant aspect of human rights. Dear Minister, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you also for the kind words for the Human Resources Council. First of all, I'd like to thank IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, for hosting this meeting. And I think it's timely also that we extend our condolences to all the families who lost their loved ones during the advent of this COVID-19 pandemic. And I think that's something that is impacting all of us. I would also like to congratulate the Director General, Mr. Francesco La Camera. You were there when he was given the posting, and we're glad to see that he's been able to implement the things that he set out to do. So thank you, Director General, for your outstanding leadership in continuing the good work that ARENA needs to do. I'd like to commend you for the presentation of the implementation of the work program and the budget for 2021. I think the report has demonstrated the cohesiveness of the activities that we have in ARENA and how everything works together, the core resource requirements and the contributions from the sub-programs. And you've also outlined the promising path for the quick post-COVID recovery, the energy transformation, and the future growth from a diversified resource-based perspective. Looking back, I think ARENA continues to gain strength over the years and has formed strong partnerships with member countries, development partners, and multilateral organizations. And that was reflected in the slides that we have just seen. I'm glad to see how ARENA has explored new ways of advancing programs. Now, despite the limitations that COVID-19 put the world in, we're still able to progress the way in which we're able to implement our programs. The long-term effect of this COVID-19 has not yet to be observed. And it's something that's before us, and it behooves all of us, all countries, to be able to work together, come up with innovative ideas to sustain each other as we move towards achieving the requirements of 2050. Our annual report has identified a lot of things that need to be done into the future. But I'd like to inform us, in Fiji, in 2020 was a challenging year. We had 2019, we had one Category 4 cyclone and one Category 5 cyclone. This is virtually unheard of for any country to have 2 Category 5 cyclones within the same year. And it brings to the point home the work that ARENA does to reduce greenhouse gas emissions has an effect on climate change that has an impact on countries like Fiji. So we are very strongly behind all the work that ARENA does. We look forward to the continued partnership of all of our global partners to make a difference in terms of energy requirements. This will have a distinct impact, especially on small island nations like Fiji, sea level rise and these huge storms that are impacting us. 2 category 4 and 5 surprise in the same year, virtually unheard of before. That's why the agenda that Irina fights for is an agenda that we fully support, and you will have continued backing on this. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thanks to you, dear Minister Yusmait. Now, I would like to give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Chems Eddin Tidur, Minister of the Energy Transition and Renewable Energy from Algeria, a country that we appreciate and love much in Spain, a neighbor from the Mediterranean.
Merci, Madame. Excellence, honorables invités, Mesdames et Messieurs, je tiens tout d'abord à vous dire combien je suis heureux et honoré d'être aujourd'hui parmi vous en cette journée mondiale de la transition énergétique pour échanger sur des questions cruciales liées à notre avenir énergétique commun. Et dans ce cadre, en tant que citoyen du monde, je pense qu'il est important de donner une impulsion plus importante aux énergies renouvelables à travers l'IRENA, notamment en essayant autant que possible d'investir plus dans les énergies renouvelables, chacun sachant que si on veut garder les 2 degrés de l'accord de Paris, il faut que 2 tiers des énergies fossiles restent dans le sous-sol. Ceci étant dit, cette Assemblée se tient dans un contexte international inédit, marqué par une multiplication de phénomènes météorologiques désastreux et une crise multidimensionnelle provoquée par la pandémie du Covid-19. De nouveaux défis sont posés, à savoir l'urgence de la reprise durable post-Covid-2019, et les énergies renouvelables ont incontestablement un rôle à jouer, ce qui impose de multiplier les efforts pour faire avancer l'agenda mondial du développement durable à 2030. Plus que jamais, nous devons tourner le dos à l'ébriété énergétique actuelle et le moment est venu de mettre tout à plat pour changer progressivement de modèle de croissance en accélérant la voie vers la sobriété énergétique. Consommer moins en consommant mieux. Vers le développement durable, et l'Algérie a entamé le chemin de la transition énergétique à l'instar des autres pays. Notre contribution majeure à l'atténuation des changements climatiques, c'est aussi la création de ce ministère de la transition énergétique qui mise sur le fait que nous allons sortir graduellement des énergies fossiles d'ici à 2030 en mettant en œuvre une transition apaisée, graduellement. Le secteur de la transition énergétique mise sur 3 volets. Les économies d'énergie, l'efficacité énergétique dans tous les domaines. Le modèle énergétique algérien actuellement est à 80% transport, habitat, résidentiel, à peine 20% pour l'industrie et l'agriculture. Nous devons changer tout cela. C'est ce que nous sommes en train de faire pour mettre en place les outils visant à aller rapidement vers l'économie des économies d'énergie. Parallèlement, nous mettons en place un modèle énergétique à 2030 qui va nous permettre graduellement de sortir du tout fossile en mettant en place donc des plans solaires, éoliens, géothermiques et qui sait, nous souhaitons aller aussi vers l'économie verte, vers l'hydrogène vert. Ceci ne pourra pas se faire à titre individuel. Il est important qu'il y ait une mutualisation des savoirs, des compétences et des moyens à travers l'IRENA. Nous sommes un partenaire, nous voulons jouer tout notre rôle et faire en sorte qu'on puisse aboutir graduellement à une planète verte qu'on laissera comme viatique aux générations futures. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, messieurs les ministres, et mes félicitations pour cette nouvelle initiative, ce nouveau ministère pour la transition énergétique et l'énergie renouvelable. It seems that there has been some small problems, technical problems with the translation, but the IRENA team underlines that they will be sharing with we all the translation so that we can follow every single comment that has been made. And apologies on behalf of the whole team. For the time being, now we have Portugal. The Deputy Minister of Portugal is Secretary of State for Energy, who will be taking the floor. Dear João Galamba, the floor is yours. If there is no technical issue behind the Portuguese connection, apparently there is something that isn't working properly well. João, ¿estás ahí? Okay, so it seems that there is a technical problem with the video camera, so we will try to keep them on board and to reconnect with Portugal in the next round. Now, the third round of 3 speakers will include Switzerland, the United States of America, and Denmark, starting with Switzerland. Le secrétaire d'État, Monsieur Benoît Rivas. His Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Dear Director General, Excellencies. Switzerland congratulates IRENA for its entire and the staff for its continuity management during the pandemic. The lockdown and travel bans have been no impediment to prolific output, both in the form of studies and webinars. We also congratulate Director General La Camera for his reactiveness by quickly focusing on how the pandemic has affected renewables and what opportunities may emerge from the crisis. The Director General's progress report makes impressive reading. Switzerland appreciates that resource allocation between the 4 strategic objectives appears to be more balanced than earlier. Switzerland continues to be a firm believer in concrete work with practical value for those countries in greatest need. As IRENA has outlined in its analysis, the renewable sector has generally proven more resilient to the effects of the pandemic than other energy sectors. Nonetheless, we should not lose sight that some renewable subsectors are more impacted than others. For example, biofuels by depressed oil prices, renewables in developing countries where the capacity to invest of state enterprises has been drastically curtailed. The 2020 edition of the IRENA's Global Landscape of Renewable Finance speaks for itself. The figure on page 24 says it all. Only a tiny fraction.
Qual é a segunda intervenção da tarde? Chamaram-me agora, não sei qual é. Só tinha a primeira. Qual é a segunda no e-mail que mandaste?
Okay. Another is developed countries. For such countries, calls for stimulus packages are of little solace, given that their governments lack the means for stimulus packages and their country may not be a preferred destination for institutional or green bond investors. In this context, Switzerland welcomes IRENA's increasing attention to issues of sustainable finance. Also, Switzerland has reacted to the pandemic by contributing to the joint World Bank WHO Gavi program called Fighting COVID-19 with Renewable Energy. This program seeks to electrify health facilities with contributed PV and provide liquidity to financially suffering mini-grid companies, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. Finally, I wish to thank Director General La Camera for having launched the collaborative frameworks on hydropower, for which Switzerland has been a proponent for some time now. And we look forward to the next steps of the hydropower collaborative framework together with our co-facilitator, Costa Rica, and all other interested members and relevant actors. I thank you for your attention.
Merci, Monsieur le Secrétaire d'État. Maintenant, now we are going to try again with Portugal, but before that, I would like to to thank you all and to excuse me. I have to leave, but His Excellency, the Secretary of State from Costa Rica, will be taking over the role of the presidency. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Now I would like to see if Portugal is already online.
We're awaiting the Vice President from Costa Rica to join. Thank you. We see that he has joined. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Secretary, for your leadership in this session. Now I would like to know if Portugal is already ready for his present.
Tá? Sim. Estão-me a chamar aqui, eu não sei bem para dizer o quê. Eu estou a dizer que não tenho nada. Pá, chama uma ministra espanhola, estão-me a chamar agora da organização e eu não sei para quê. Pois é, o que também eu falei com a Adriana, ela diz-me o mesmo, portanto eu não sei o que é para fazer.
Sir, the floor is yours.
Pá, nem eu. E a Adriana também não. Olha, não sei. Pois. Temos algum contacto telefónico dos gajos, alguma coisa?
Sir, we can hear you. The floor is yours. Okay, seems like the representative of Portugal is not ready. So we're going now to give the floor to the representative of the United States. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. I'd like to echo the endorsement of President Rivera in thanking the Director General and all IRENA staff for your leadership in organizing this first virtual IRENA assembly. It's quite a challenge to organize these big international meetings under normal circumstances, and I think these minor technical difficulties just make us feel at home. We would like to applaud IRENA's robust engagement since the start of the pandemic, which has shown us that, like renewables themselves, the organization is resilient even in the most difficult of times. In the last year, both the public and private sectors across the world have demonstrated their support in concrete ways for the growth of the global energy transformation. The expected growth for the full range of renewables, as well as electric transport, is phenomenal. The United States is a key part of this shift, and US companies are among those at the forefront of the energy transition. IRENA's latest annual report and the Director General's summary of it just now highlights ways in which the organization's research and practical programming are helping countries make smart choices as they update their energy systems. The energy choices we make in the years to come will have profound economic and social impacts, which of course we want to be positive and inclusive. As an example, IRENA's latest jobs report underscores strategic planning and targeted training can create renewables, related employment in rural areas where jobs are most needed, and bring high percentages of women into the renewables labor force. And Director General, I would like to commend the gender balance you've achieved at IRENA itself. That's quite an accomplishment. Another issue, ensuring that we have minerals and metals required for a successful clean energy transition, is so pressing that I will focus the rest of the US intervention on it. Solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicles, batteries for storage, and other clean energy technologies all require significant quantities of energy minerals and metals. We have to act now so that the future mineral supply chains will be diverse, resilient, environmentally sustainable, and respect the human rights of workers and populations in mining communities. In other words, to be responsibly sourced. Source countries must establish good governance practices so that the mining spurs economic development for the benefit of their people. With this in mind, in 2019, the Department of State in the United States launched the Energy Resources Governance Initiative with founding partners Australia, Botswana, Canada, and Peru. This multinational effort brings countries together to share best practices, encourage a level playing field, and ultimately build reliable, sustainable supply chains for the minerals and metals that make this clean energy transformation possible. We're pleased that many IRENA members participated in our webinar in June 2020, and we look forward to even more IRENA members participating either as joining the technical assistance or providing it. We look forward to working with you going forward on these important issues. The essential role that IRENA plays in the dissemination of policy best practices and innovative finance models, and in connecting IRENA members to reinforce our individual efforts, will only increase in importance in the years to come. It's vital that all IRENA members expand our collaboration and intensify our collective efforts, working with the Secretariat to accelerate the adoption of renewable energy technologies. Once again, I'd like to thank IRENA for hosting this session and the Director General for delivering an excellent report, and more importantly, for keeping the momentum up on this vital work over this very difficult past year. We look forward to seeing all of you back in Abu Dhabi soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And I would now like to give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Thomas Anker, Climate Ambassador of Denmark. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you to both my good friend Francesco for his excellent presentation, and also Teresa Rivera for her leadership of the meeting and of IRENA. Just to echo my US colleague, it has indeed been a very exceptional, difficult, and challenging year since we last met in Abu Dhabi, and I hope you're all in good health and doing well. We look forward to being able to meet physically again very soon. IRENA has been doing an immense work on bringing the renewable energy agenda to the table globally under these very difficult circumstances. Your work on tracking the progress of SDG 7 together with fellow custodians, the World Bank, the UN Sustainable Development Group, WHO, IEA, shows that you have managed to become a major player in the global energy transition, and congratulations, Francesco, for achieving that. We look forward to working closely with you towards the first UN high-level dialogue on energy, which will be convened this September, and where Denmark will play a key role. In 2020, we had the pleasure of entering into a strategic partnership with IRENA, harvesting the synergies of our mutual priorities even more. The deployment of renewable energy plays a vital role in securing the global energy transition. And I would like, on Denmark's behalf, to thank IRENA for its commitment to its member states and for being a very active and engaged player on the international energy and climate agenda. Not least, we appreciate IRENA's contribution to strengthen focus on end-use sectors, and particularly to the difficult to decarbonize sectors in industry and transport. This is important to country efforts to decarbonize energy supply and demand by 2050. The collaboration with the Getting to Zero Coalition on commercially viable CO2 neutral ships by 2030 demonstrates the cross-sectoral multi-stakeholder partnership needed for progress. We look forward to carry on this work together towards COP26 in Glasgow, and through mission innovation. The last time we met a year ago, we were all gathered under the UAE sun. At that time, we had just agreed upon a legally binding act committing the current and future Danish governments to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 70% in 2030 on the 1990 baseline, and to reach zero net emissions by 2050 at the latest. Then we were all struck by this global pandemic, and we have all been preoccupied with urgent health measures, with unfortunate many deaths, lockdowns, recovery measures, and vaccine development. But the pandemic has also shown how the world, when working collectively, can mitigate and eventually solve a global crisis. Now the vaccines are being rolled out, and hopefully to all parts of the world very soon. And we can hopefully see the light at the end of the tunnel. During the pandemic, most of us have continued to work tirelessly to support the green transition and the green recovery. And we have seen that investments in green technology have been more resilient than other investments during the economic recession. And I think, Francesco, in your presentation, you showed even how the jobs have kept on growing despite the slowing down of the global economy. And we have seen the very ambitious announcements from countries such as China, Japan, South Korea, and many others. And with the results of the US presidential elections, we're now all looking forward to the US regaining its position in the global architecture on climate and energy action, and of course, rejoining the Paris Agreement. In Denmark, we have agreed on the implementation of several climate action plans to reach the 2030 target across areas such as energy, industry, housing, taxation, transport, and we will develop 2 large energy islands with wind energy to deliver energy to Northern Europe and support the development of power-to-X and green hydrogen. In addition, we have also set an end date for oil and gas extraction in the North Sea by 2050. As we have heard from colleagues today, we see ambitious climate action plans around the world being developed. However, we are reminded time and time again that current progress is insufficient. We must scale up ambitions and action, and we hope from the Danish side that we can inspire policies and plans for particularly renewable energy in due time before Glasgow. I would like to end by thanking all staff members of IRENA for their dedicated and immense effort in advancing the business case for renewable energy. At the same time, it is vital to scale down the use of fossil fuel, in particular coal, in power generation and industry. I hope we together can work towards a green, just and fast transition. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Tak, Mr. Ambassador. Now, I would like to give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Jaime Amin, embajador de Colombia en los Emiratos Árabes Unidos. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Good evening, Mr. Francesco La Camera, IRENA General Director. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be speaking in Spanish. Agradecemos a IRENA el liderazgo para
We would like to thank IRENA for having taken a lead role in organizing this virtual assembly. We are committed to promoting renewable energies given the pandemic in which we find ourselves. We have an important energy transition in Colombia. We went from 30 megawatts in 2018 to more than 225 megawatts in 2020 of installed capacity. So we're trying to transform our energy sector and diversify our energy mix and matrix and become more resilient, especially in the face of climate change. Energy auctions carried out in 2019 meant that 1,500 megawatts were made available for new and developing projects. So we want 2,500 megawatts of new installed capacity for 2022. And we hope to reach this by using market mechanisms and new renewable energy auctions, which we are getting ready for 2021, June of 2021. So we've made a great deal of headway under our president's administration. And when it comes to generating clean energy, this will help sustainable recovery, and it will help generate employment. In this framework, we're working together with the Inter-American Development Bank and OLAL with Chile and Costa Rica in the framework of regional projects for renewable energies. It's called RELAT in order to further develop renewable sourced energy and to achieve a rate of penetration of 70%. This year, Colombia, with the help of the Inter-American Development Bank, we've drawn up a roadmap for developing green hydrogen in Colombia. With the help of the World Bank, we're setting up a strategy to deploy offshore wind energy. So by using these two tools, we hope to be able to continue to make some headway when it comes to diversifying our energy mix and achieve resilient, low emission and renewably sourced energy sector. We are a full member of IRENA, and we are committed to promoting renewable energies and achieving a more sustainable energy transition and a fairer one. Therefore, we wish to join the IRENA Council for 2021-2022, and this will help, I think, further promote initiatives which are of common interest. We're going to also continue participating in ministerial meetings with our Minister of Energy and our Vice Minister for Energy. And we wish you full success during the course of this assembly. We all share common interests and we hope to further them here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I would like to give the floor to the Republic of Korea, Mr. Han Seok-ryu, Director of Energy and Scientific Affairs Division, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Korea. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to someone. Here in Korea, it is already midnight. So let me be quick. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Director General and Secretariat for his hard work and preparations for this wonderful assembly. Among the achievements IRENA made last year, I want to take note of the report on green hydrogen, which was issued last November.
Okay, testing. This is Christopher testing.
And I think it will attract more attention to green hydrogen across the world and help member countries to formulate their policies
testing. 1, 2, 3.
On its production and supply. And I also hope IRENA will share its policy implications and impact with us in the International Conference on Hydrogen 2021, which will be held in Seoul later this year, following 2019 and 2020. As for the partnership with other international organizations, it is meaningful that IRENA signed the partnership agreement on renewable energies with FAO, Food and Agriculture Organizations. And I encourage IRENA to further explore the role of renewable energies in terms of strengthening food security. Last year, Korea was confronted with unprecedented challenges like other countries, but we tried to make our best to turn the crisis to the opportunities for facilitating the green transition with more focus on renewables and ultimately for attaining the climate goals. In particular, following the proclamation of achieving net zero by 2050 as a policy goal last October, the Korean government set out 2050 carbon neutrality strategy action plan. This action plan requires us to take proactive measures for building foundations and enhancing capabilities in efforts to achieve carbon neutrality as well as boost economic growth and promote welfare. This ambitious goal cannot be achieved solely by our own, and the goals member countries are now actively pursuing also cannot be achieved alone by themselves either. The concerted efforts across the world are needed even more in this crisis. This being said, I highly urge the IRENA Secretariat and member countries to heed its attention to the P4G Summit, which will be held in Seoul at the end of this May, and expect us all together to pave the bigger way for partnering for green growth and global goals 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Korea. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Laura Lisano, Director of Energy Planning at the Ministry of Energy and Environment of Costa Rica. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The energy sector development in Costa Rica has been based on energy policies with a strong commitment to the use of renewable sources of energy. Main policies such as the National Decarbonization Plan and the National Energy Plan aim to transform the country to a net zero emissions economy by 2050. The energy agenda shows the country engagement to the global climate action and sustainable development goals. The integration of energy and environment strategies is not new in the country. Our policies and legal framework have enabled important achievements. In the last years, we have produced electricity with more than 98% renewable sources. In 2018, we reached 99.7%. In 2019, 99.2%. And last year, the data until November shows 98.5% renewable in the electricity mix. The beginning of this journey started with hydropower development, followed by undertaking geothermal investigations and use of this highly suitable renewable source. Next, tackling our wind potential, and finally, integrating solar power. Hydropower remains our most important source, but geothermal energy and wind power have a big share in the mix nowadays. I would like to note here that we are looking forward to work in the hydropower collaborative work framework, where we have been appointed co-facilitators with Switzerland. We recognize the role of electricity in the inhabitants' welfare. Costa Rica has expanded the electric grid throughout its territory, and whenever this is not feasible, has provided microhydro or solar solutions to rural communities. As a result, our country has reached 99.4% of households with electricity access. Despite these accomplishments, the challenges remain. Our world is facing a climate emergency that threatens biodiversity, health, safety, and even survival. The pandemic has shown our vulnerability and has highlighted the need for action. Costa Rica has strengthened its climate ambitions by means of updating its national determined contributions in December 2020. Our transformation roadmap includes electrification of the transport sector and other energy uses in the residential and industrial sectors, supported by our renewable electricity production. But in order to achieve this, a vision of a modern and an efficient electric sector capable of providing the increased demand with renewable sources at a competitive cost should be reached. We have taken important steps toward electrification of transport. According to the National Decarbonization Plan, Costa Rica aims to electrify 95% of its private car fleet by 2050. In this matter, we already have a law which establishes obligation and mandates to promote electric transport and allows fiscal incentives as stimulus for owners of this technology. Additionally, a national plan to encourage transport electrification at the private level, in government and in public transportation was launched. As a result, we have a consolidated electric charging network and one of the highest numbers of electric vehicles in Latin America. And this number is increasing every year. We also started a pilot project in public transportation, which will be used to scale up electric public transport. We will continue addressing the challenges, a higher diversification of renewable resources, an optimized system operation which incorporates big scale projects and distributed resources, to mention some. Innovation and digitalization will help us develop a better system at a competitive cost for the well-being of our inhabitants. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Costa Rica. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Tite Juul Jorgensen, Director General for Energy at the European Union. Ms., you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon from Brussels, and welcome to Spain as a new chair of the Assembly. Thank you very much to Irina, and thank you very much to Director General Francesco La Camera for all the work in preparing this and the ability to adapt and deliver in very challenging circumstances, and also an excellent Assembly this year. As you will know, the European Union is implementing the European Green Deal, which is our strategy to become climate neutral in 2050 while creating sustainable jobs and growth in Europe. It establishes our policies to transform our whole economy and put it on track to full decarbonization. We have set this long-term objective of climate neutrality in 2050. That is essential, but equally important is to set the path towards climate neutrality. And European heads of state and government met in December and agreed to reach a target of at least 55% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions already by 2030. This is a significant change, and it will require us over the coming 10 years to at least double the share of renewable energy in our European energy system. It means that we would need to produce 2/3 of our electricity from renewable sources between now and 2030, and it means accelerating the development of renewables in end-use sectors, industry, transport, and buildings, where so far the progress has been slow. This is a topic where we look forward to cooperating very closely with Irina. We are developing a set of measures to help us reach our targets and achieve the ambition of climate neutrality. We have established a policy framework for an integrated energy system so as to allow for the integration of higher levels of renewables into the system. We have established a renovation wave strategy to accelerate deep renovations of buildings. And we have set strategies, for example, to capture the potential of offshore renewable energy and renewable hydrogen as well. In parallel to that, we are conducting a full review of our policies to assess which policies are fit for increasing the climate ambition and achieving our targets in a cost-effective manner. The COVID crisis has hit all of us. It has impacted the energy sector, but it has not lowered our ambition. To the contrary, for Europe, there is no going back to normal after the COVID crisis. Rather, we want to recover, and we want to do that in a way that aligns with our Green Deal and our climate ambition. So that will require us to invest into recovery, and we have put in place a financial instrument, Next Generation EU Recovery and Resilience Facility of 750 billion euro, which should fund national recovery plans that need to be fully aligned with the green transition and climate neutrality. At least 37% of each national plan of European member states must go to climate-related projects, and we will coordinate flagship projects on renewable energy, clean mobility, and building renovation. We are, of course, also applying the principles of the European Green Deal to our external action, and we intend to engage and work with partners in IRENA and elsewhere and remain leaders on global climate action. We have created a single new financial instrument to rationalize international cooperation and to allow a more consistent and flexible approach to address the global challenges of today, both of climate recovery and the green energy transition, in working closely with IRENA and partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, European Union. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Ernst Peter Fischer, Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to the United Arab Emirates. Sir, you have the floor. Sir, we cannot hear you. I think your microphone is off. Sorry. We cannot hear you.
There we go. I think now. Now you can hear me?
Yes, sir, please.
So I beg your pardon for that. It's an honor to speak on behalf of the government of Germany, Mr. Chairman, and it's a special honor to speak directly after the European Union, because everything we do in Germany is done in the context of the European Union. I would like to thank the Director General and IRENA for their work and for their comprehensive report on its past and current activities. IRENA is again working on an impressive rate of implementation for its work program, despite the challenges posed by the pandemic. IRENA has vast experience in RE-map analysis at global, regional, and country level, and this can be built upon. Recent reports like the Global Renewables Outlook bear out the good news that renewables have a strong business case. We very much look forward to key findings of the Global Renewables Outlook being presented in March at the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue. Also, the latest reports on green hydrogen and ocean energy contain valuable insights. We appreciate the progress made in setting up the IRENA collaborative frameworks and look forward to further detailing their work programs and impactful discussions with other member states and stakeholders. IRENA is the center of excellence and expertise when it comes to renewables, and it should focus its available resources on activities within its core mandate: data collection, analysis, strategy, and scenario development, as well as policy advice. At the same time, IRENA obviously should have a keen eye on the practical feasibility of its recommendations in a real-life context. Therefore, in principle, we welcome a more action-oriented approach, but we do also urge a cautious and measured approach. An expansion too heavily in the direction of project development would carry the risk of draining resources from the core areas mentioned above. We should also be careful not to unduly stretch IRENA's mandate. We agree with IRENA's role as a project facilitator, but we caution against coming into the area of being an implementer. The distinction between facilitating and implementing is a fine line and should not be blurred. Advances into support for the preparation of individual projects should therefore be carefully considered and discussed in detail with the IRENA membership. Let me encourage IRENA to focus itself on activities as a facilitator, providing a platform for various actors relevant to project creation, financing, and implementation, thereby complementing but not duplicating existing initiatives and convening those who possess the abilities and means to realize project implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Denmark. And before I give the floor to the next speaker, I just would like to remind the speakers that are on the list to accept the request to switch on the camera in order to give you the floor. Thank you. Now, I would like to give the floor to His Excellency, Dr. Abdul Hussein Mirza, President of Sustainable Energy Authority of the Kingdom of Bahrain. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. His Excellency Director General Francisco, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. I would like to thank all of you and the organizing committee of IRENA for making this the 11th session of the General Assembly possible, even under the current global conditions. Particularly, I would like to thank Mr. Francisco La Camera for his continued efforts extended as Director General to promote renewable energy. I'm pleased to attend today, and despite the new virtual modality, to be together with you all to inform the Assembly of the great strides made in regard to both renewable energy and energy efficiency in the Kingdom of Bahrain. To start with, I'm pleased to report that in October 2019, His Majesty the King of Bahrain issued a royal decree establishing an independent authority called Sustainable Energy Authority, and His Majesty appointed me, I am an ex-Minister of Energy, as President of that authority, reporting direct to the Cabinet of Bahrain. This upgrading comes as a recognition from the political leadership in the Kingdom of Bahrain for the importance of clean energy and its future. Also, we have the national targets for renewable energy of achieving 250 megawatt of clean energy by 2025, to be increased to 710 megawatts by 2035. And we have a national target for energy efficiency of 6%, which will achieve a saving of $600 million per year for the government of Bahrain in energy savings. I'm pleased to say we have already achieved 70% of these both targets, and we are sure we will achieve our targets. One of the latest initiatives we have was to devise a renewable energy certificate, which is issued by the Sustainable Energy Authority to the producing companies or authorities of renewable energy. These certificates have a value, and they can sell it to the entities that need to show they are investing in clean energy, but they cannot do it themselves. And we have used, it is all electronic from the beginning to the end, and a certificate is issued through blockchain technology. So all these developments, which is happening in the Kingdom of Bahrain, of course, we are guided also by IRENA, and we are very pleased to see that lots of progress is made in this regard. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Van Rijn. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Abu Safar, Ambassador of Bangladesh. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Madam President, distinguished Director General, Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good evening from Abu Dhabi. As my delegation is taking the floor for the first time, let me congratulate you, Madam President, on your election, as well as the distinguished members of your Bureau on their election. My delegation is confident that under your leadership, the session will attain its objective. I assure you, Madam President, of Bangladesh delegation's full support and cooperation in steering the session a success. My delegation would like to express sincere appreciation to the Director General and the Secretariat staff for well organizing such large participation over virtual platform during the very challenging time presented by COVID-19 pandemic, and for timely providing of all sessional documents and necessary preparations for holding it smoothly. The virtual participation at the Assembly demonstrates a strong commitment of the IRENA members towards energy transition to mitigate climate change consequences with indices of the Paris Climate Agreement at the center, and SDG 7, as well as for creation of additional jobs and investments. It also affords me great pleasure to welcome and congratulate new members on their joining the agencies since the last Assembly session. Madam President, my delegation would also like to thank the Director General for introducing the annual report, as well as for his introductory remarks. Bangladesh appreciates the work of the Secretariat led by His Excellency Mr. Francesco La Camera for providing comprehensive information of its work program and budget for 2021, as well as of the state of implementation of the programmed activities. Notwithstanding the unprecedented time of COVID-19 pandemic, the Secretariat has moved along with all 54 budgeted programs of activities over the year. Although only 13% of the total program outputs are complete, it is noteworthy at the same time that 81% are in progress. Congratulations to the IRENA team. We would therefore hope that the Secretariat would double down its efforts to make good on all budgeted activities in the last year of the current biennium. Distinguished delegates, we are also happy to note from the Director General's report, the total capacity of global renewable energy generation has been doubled between 2010 and 2029, while the total energy production increased more than 1.5 times since 2010. Most significantly, the renewable power costs are in a trend of hitting a new rock bottom regularly. Furthermore, the lights shed on the socio-economic impact of the energy transition, like investment and employment creation in the renewables, would further encourage the national policymakers to be more engaging in this area with a view to achieving inclusiveness, resilience, and equity in energy transition. What's more, the introduction of new tools like collaborative frameworks and proposed global high-level forum on energy transition and new reports introduced by the agency would undoubtedly contribute to not only the national policy formulation of member states, but also creating greater impact in setting new commitments to achieving decarbonized economy. Madam President, it's also heartening to note that in line with the UN strategy, the Secretariat has been able to nearly close the gender gap in its 2020 recruitment process, with 49% of the recruits are women. Bangladesh delegation commends the Director General's efforts to this end, as Bangladesh is a champion on women empowerment under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. In this context, I would call upon the Director General to also take account of the population size of the member states while maintaining equitable geographical distribution in the IRENA recruits. It's good to see that over a decade, the agency has emerged as a global center of excellence for knowledge and innovation and a stakeholders network hub, as well as a voice for renewable energy. In the meantime, its outward-facing activities have also focused on knowledge creation with 45% of its output, while action on the ground outputs by 31%, mostly supported by voluntary contributions. In this context, Bangladesh delegation would like to express its deep appreciation to all voluntary contributors, namely the United Arab Emirates, Germany, Japan, Italy, Norway, and other institutions like European Commission, UNDP, IBRD, etc., for their support of the IRENA actions on the ground outputs. In this context, I would like to call upon the agency not to lose sight of the special needs of the LDC graduating countries, including my country, and LDCs and small island developing states, with respect to both technical assistance and finance in their energy transition policies and program. With these foregoing remarks, we welcome the Director General's annual report as contained in the document A/11/3, as well as appreciate the agency's continued efforts towards providing its mandated services to the member states. notwithstanding the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. In conclusion, I wish that COVID-19 vaccines launched recently would contribute to early rebound of social and economic activities in 2021. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Bangladesh. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to our friend and colleague, Salvador Gandal, Executive Secretary at the Ministry of Economy of El Salvador. Sir, you have the floor. No te escuchamos, Salvador.
Salvador, we cannot hear you. Hello, how are you? Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Chair? Yes? Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the floor. Greetings to all IRENA functionaries and to the DG, Francesco La Camada. I'd like to thank you here from El Salvador and greetings again to all of you. I want today to share with you the headway we've made in the past 2 years, 2019, 2020, when it comes to renewable energies in our country. We've been trying to promote renewably sourced energies for the past decade, in fact. And in the past 2 years, we have made concrete progress. 83% is the level of production of renewable sources of energy, hydropower, geothermal power, biomass, photovoltaic sources of energy, and more recently, wind energy. We have many more efforts that we need to deploy, however, and there are many challenges too that we face as a country in order to guarantee a sustainable and prosperous future for our young people and for future generations. And that's why our national energy policy, which ranges from 2020 to 2050, includes an emphasis on how important it is to deploy renewable sources of energy, not just for electricity generation, but also in order to strengthen food safety in our country. For instance, we could use geothermal sources of energy in greenhouses in order to produce foodstuffs. Or in fish farms too, or for livestock production. And we need also to have replacements for fossil fuels, and we need to enable new methods of production, and this will help catalyze our potential when it comes to economic development and growth. And we need to help our economy recover after this pandemic. We need long-term recovery plans, and these must be in conformity with sustainable energy policies and with the Paris agreements in order to reduce the impact of climate change. So, as our country, we are trying to achieve modern supply and consumption of energy. We want to guarantee universal access, fair access to energy. And we want an innovative energy model, one which is safe and carbon neutral, and innovative too for the future. And I think we're headed down that route in a positive fashion, and I'm sure we can achieve this with help and support of our friends in IRENA. So at this forum this afternoon, we would like to once again say how much we support the projects and policies that IRENA supports. We all share the same problems and challenges in the energy sector. Thank you very much, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, El Salvador. Now I give the floor to Iran.
Mr. President, Excellencies, I have the honor to give my speech at the 11th session of the Assembly of IRENA. At the beginning, I would like to thank Director General Dr. Francesco La Camera and the Secretariat for organizing and facilitating the 11th session of the Assembly. I hope the results of the discussions and negotiations at the end of the meeting open up new horizons in the field of energy around the world. The role and importance of energy in the international arena and development of countries have increased more than before. One of the most crucial methods in the upcoming decades is the development of electricity use as an alternative to other energy carriers that would result in doubling the generation and consumption capacity of electricity. One of the most important measures taken in the field of energy is the supply of electricity from renewable and clean energy sources. The world is witnessing a transformation in the energy sector, a transition from fossil fuel-based system towards renewables. Mr. President, the main plan of Islamic Republic of Iran is the optimized use of fossil fuel sources and improving the operation of diverse renewables and clean energy sources to supply the partial country's energy mix demand by taking these measures. Number one, supporting the private sector through concluding guaranteed power purchase agreement with incentive tariffs. Number two, supporting equipment manufacturers with the aim of transfer and localization of renewable energy technologies. Number three, supporting the research centers. Number four, providing access to sustainable electricity in remote areas and villages. And number five, implementing policies to export renewable electricity from Iran to other countries. According to the plans made, we have witnessed the operation of about 850 megawatt renewable and clean energy power plants. All these power plants have been developed by 160 private sector companies in the majority region of Iran. Furthermore, 260 megawatt capacity is under construction. These capacities, along with Iran's expert force and industrial potentials, have created 31,000 direct and indirect jobs until now. Undoubtedly, IRENA provides a great platform for further cooperation between member countries on education, transfer of experience, and technical know-how in the field of renewable energy. To conclude, I would like to thank the organizers of this assembly that the cooperation of all countries and international decision-making bodies will lead to a synergy to deploy the use of renewable energy sources more than before. I thank you all.
Thank you, Iran. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Israel. Sir, you have the floor.
I'm proud and delighted to participate in the IRENA conference in Abu Dhabi, although this year through the internet, through the Zoom program. Let's hope that next year we will be able to convene together in Abu Dhabi again. Israel is proud to be the first country in the world to terminate the use of coal. In 2012, just 8 years ago, 63% of our electricity was produced from coal, and now we already reduced it. This year it will be about 22%, and in 2025 we are going to terminate the use of coal. I think we in Britain, we are leading the world in this regard. Although we started from more than 60% in Britain, only 40%. So we can claim the first place in this important process of reducing the use of coal and replacing it by a clean energy, either natural gas or renewables. In Israel, we took a very courageous and brave challenge. We decided that by 2030, less than 10 years from now, almost 30% of our electricity will be produced from solar energy. Actually, in Israel, we don't have renewables in plural. We have just a little bit of wind in the north, but the only renewable we have is solar energy. In solar energy, we made enormous progress in the last 3 or 4 years. According to the International Energy Organization, we are now number 2 in the world after Honduras. We already produce, according to the report, almost 9% of our electricity from solar systems. But this is not enough. In 2030, it is going to be about 30%. And this might put us even number 1 in the world in solar energy. Since solar energy is heavily dependent on weather, sometimes at winter time in Israel, you can have a week or 2 with a very cloudy week or even 2 weeks in a row. And then you have to either store a lot of electricity or connect yourself to other countries in order to get the backing. And here the Abraham Accords and the new atmosphere in the Middle East, I believe, give us very interesting opportunities. For example, I understand that in the Emirates, but I think this is also the situation in Jordan, for example. You don't have problem of energy, of electricity supply at winter time, because consumption peaks are only at summertime, air conditioning. And on the other hand, you don't have a week or 2 of cloudy days. So if we could connect the Israeli electricity grid together with Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and of course, Emirates, Bahrain, regional cooperation, it could give all parties the backing they need. We could back, for example, Jordan or the Emirates at summertime, when they need much more electricity, and they can give us some backing at winter time. This is the future. Regional cooperation, not just global, but also regional cooperation, might help us to promote more and more renewables, in our case, mostly solar energy. Last but not least, maybe the most important thing is, and this is actually one of the main aims of IRENA, is to develop new technologies, new methods of renewable energies. As you probably know, Israel is being called by many startup nation. In Israel, we have more technological startups per capita than any other country in the world. And actually, even in absolute numbers, in little Israel, there are more technological startups than all of the European Union together. In complete numbers, we are second only to the United States of America. In the last 5 years, many researchers and scientists and engineers began to focus on renewables and related issues. And there is a very large progress. Some Israeli companies like SolarEdge, just one example, already became global giants. But there are hundreds of very interesting companies. Some of them are startups, some of them are more mature, that are dealing with all the important and interesting things, like, for example, electricity storage, electricity efficiency, the efficiency of solar systems, like, for example, hydrogen cells, new systems, and new approach to hydrogen cells. cybersecurity for the energy sector, and more and more. And here I believe that in the coming years, we shall see many breakthroughs. Also here, I'm happy to conclude by this positive remark. Following the Abraham Accords, we began to speak with the Emirates, with the host of this conference, about creating a model, an umbrella agreement for technological cooperation in renewables, in efficiency, in cybersecurity, to make joint efforts of R&D. And I believe that in the coming years, we shall see that the Abraham Peace Accords are enabling us to go to give another important push to those efforts to develop new technologies and new methods of renewables. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you to the distinguished representative of Israel. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to China. Sir, you have the floor.
Distinguished Director General, colleagues, delegates, good afternoon, good evening. It's my honor and a pleasure to attend the 11th session of IRENA Assembly. First of all, on behalf of the Chinese government, I would like to express my congratulations to Spain and Albania, Costa Rica, Ghana, India, as well as Director General and the Secretariat of IRENA. Thank you very much for the efforts and the preparation for this 11th session of the Assembly. As one of the most important cooperation platforms for years, IRENA has been using its own excellency in renewable energy, green hydrogen, and carbon emission reduction, as well as its impacts on policy, has been trying very hard to push forward the experience sharing between nations and regions. IRENA has facilitated the development of renewable energy as well as the transition of energy. A lot of obvious outcomes have happened. In the year 2020, 2020 has been an eventful year with COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic not only exerts negative impact on the development of society and economy, it also causes a lot of troubles to the normal operation of this organization. Just like what has been commented by the Director General in the annual report, since 2020, IRENA has been trying very hard to overcome the negative influences, to innovate the way of method through virtual meetings and remote cooperation. A lot of activities have been carried out. IRENA has also launched the Global Outlook on Renewable Energy 2050. IRENA has been using the opportunity of zero-emission reports to expand its membership to 162. All these achievements mentioned above does not only support different nations to transit their energy, but also further improve IRENA's status as the leader of renewable energy governance. Here, on behalf of the Chinese government, I would like to express my appreciation to the Director General and the Secretariat. I would also like to express my appreciation to the excellent achievements. Since 2014, China became a formal member of IRENA. China attaches high importance to the cooperation with IRENA. We actively implemented our obligations of a membership. We have organized relevant think tanks and organizations and government agencies to participate in the renewable energy employment and end-user decarbonization activities. IRENA and China organized and planned 3 sessions of the Suzhou Energy Transition Forums. We cooperated with IRENA to produce the mid and long-term 2030-2050 outlook. We also worked together to launch China's renewable energy outlook and Zhangjiakou 2050 energy transition report. We have achieved some concrete outcomes, providing a very good basis for future expansion and development. In September last year, President Xi Jinping delivered a speech in the UN. He mentioned that China's greenhouse emission will peak in the year of 2030. We will strive to achieve carbon neutrality in the year of 2060. Also, President Xi Jinping also proposed in the Climate Change Summit till 2030, unit GDP CO2 emission will be reduced by over 65 compared to the previous level. Renewable energy will account for 25% of primary energy consumption. Power generation and solar PV will reach 12 billion kilowatts. We will try our best to reinforce our status as the leader in the market. We will reinforce our cooperation with international organizations like IRENA in terms of personal exchange, project development, as well as other cooperations. Let's work hand in hand to fasten the recovery of the world economy, to push forward a new future of renewable energy and the energy transition. We will work hard to contribute to these objectives. Thank you all.
I thank the distinguished representative of China. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to the distinguished representative of Austria. You have the floor.
Chair, Director General, Excellencies, dear colleagues. It is my great pleasure to convey this message on behalf of Austria and the Federal Ministry for Climate Action, Environment, Energy, Mobility, Innovation and Technology. This is Austria's first participation at the General Assembly as IRENA member state. I'm very happy and honored that we are finally part of the global IRENA family. In accordance with the current government program, the Austrian Minister for Foreign Affairs and myself have supported a swift ratification process from the very beginning of our mandates in 2020. Austria has previously participated in IRENA activities, but we look forward to further intensifying international energy cooperation under the IRENA umbrella and play an active role as a full member. IRENA has become the global voice for renewable energy, and its Center of Excellence has delivered tangible results. I'm convinced that Austria can contribute valuable expertise and share its experience, successes and challenges, be it regulatory or technological. We all know that increasing the share of renewables in our energy mix is only part of a much bigger energy story. Being aware of the major transformations the energy world is going through, we need to rethink our energy systems and reinvent ourselves. We need to have the courage to change. As I speak to you for the first time, let me briefly outline Austria's very ambitious climate and energy targets. First of all, the Austrian government aims at carbon neutrality by 2040, which is 10 years earlier than the EU's goal. Secondly, as one cornerstone to achieve climate neutrality by 2040, The government has set a target for 100% renewable electricity consumption by 2030. Today already, 73% of our electricity is renewable, but reaching 100% from renewables by 2030 implies further action. For instance, a 10-fold increase in PV generation and a 3-fold increase in wind generation. A new support scheme for renewables shall be a key element to reaching the 100% electricity target, among others. To reach climate neutrality, large-scale deployment of green hydrogen, particularly on the industry sector, will be needed. As a result, Austria is developing a national hydrogen strategy to scale up renewable hydrogen, and we see it as crucial that we don't stick on the wrong pathways for the production of hydrogen. Our Green Recovery Program includes several short and medium-term measures for a green recovery. We will introduce some of them during the upcoming ministerial sessions of this Assembly. Our ambitions are high, but we cannot achieve our goals alone. When it comes to international cooperation, Austria welcomes the strong links between IRENA and the Vienna-based international energy organizations. I'm convinced that these partnerships will allow IRENA and its partners to create synergies, avoid overlaps, and increase IRENA's regional and global impact. As called out in 2020 by the European Union and the European Commission, we need a Green Deal. Globally, 2021 has to be the year of the beginning of the urgently needed green and sustainable transition in all sectors. Time is running, and in the end, we are responsible by our functions. We all know energy is not a sector. It's the ultimate connector and enabler of human development and progress. Energy transition is indeed the engine that drives our economies out of the economic crisis after the COVID-19 pandemic. We have a collective responsibility for our world and for future generations. Austria will continue to forge strong energy partnerships by seeking dialogue and building consensus for effective multilateralism. It is IRENA's power of diversity, the power of multiple points of view that fosters innovation and progress. Let us always keep in mind, the best way to predict the future of energy is to shape it.
Thank you, Austria. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to the distinguished representative of Canada. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Director General La Camera, Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. I am joining you today from the island of Newfoundland, the most eastern part of Canada, the ancestral homeland of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. We gather for one of the first meetings of global decision makers in 2021, following a year that all of us are all too happy to put behind us. A year that exposed deep divisions in our societies, that challenged and hurt businesses, communities, workers, whole industries. As we work to protect and vaccinate our populations and rebuild our economies, we must keep supporting workers and businesses and keep fighting climate change. Combating climate change is the challenge and the opportunity of our post-COVID recovery. There's no question about the need to address this threat. The only question is how. How do we meet our needs, power our cities and towns, heat our homes, grow our economy while producing fewer emissions? These questions are difficult, but they are ones that we need to answer. For Canada, it starts with building our clean energy future, not just to combat a changing climate, but to ensure our energy security, strengthen our economic competitiveness, and create good, sustainable jobs for Canadians. The markets are changing. Investors from around the world are increasingly making clear choices. They are putting their money into businesses, industries, and jurisdictions that are taking meaningful climate action, and they are divesting from those that, in their view, are not. Now is the moment to create a more sustainable and more prosperous future for our planet, for our fellow citizens, for our children and our grandchildren, which is why we're here, representing more than 160 nations. If we want to continue to prosper in this century of clean growth, and I'll borrow an expression from, it's an old Canadian hockey expression, then you've got to skate to where the puck is going. Not where the puck is now, where the puck is going. For Canada, the work is well underway. We've just unveiled an ambitious new chapter in our climate plan, the most robust climate strategy in our nation's history, aimed not just meeting, but beating our 2030 Paris targets and becoming a net zero nation within 3 decades. To get there, we have more than tripled the price that we've put on pollution over the next 10 years, phasing out coal-fired electricity by the end of this decade, and injecting an initial $15 billion to support the things that we need to do to achieve a net zero future, including new sources of clean energy, which are the fastest form of power generation in Canada, new solar, wind, biomass installations in more than 100 remote and Indigenous communities to reduce their reliance on diesel fuel, a national action plan for small modular reactors, a national strategy for hydrogen, the completion of our first geothermal project, the advancement of tidal power, and more hydroelectricity here in Atlantic Canada to take the entire region off of coal. Canada's strengthened climate plan is all about supporting zero-emission vehicles and the necessary charging and refueling stations, helping to fund retrofits so that our homes and buildings are not just more comfortable, but more affordable, and adopting nature-based solutions like planting 2 billion trees, putting our planet's own lungs to work for a cleaner future. IRENA is central to all of this, central to building our clean energy future, central to advancing broader socioeconomic benefits such as gender equality and inclusiveness, central to bringing clean energy to people living without it. So we're funding new ways to develop new sources of energy and new technologies, as well as creating financing facilities and opportunities for the private sector to spearhead climate solutions. We are determined to lead the way. We want to be the world's supplier of choice for clean energy. We want to be the world's leading jurisdiction for clean technology. And we want to be the first country that springs to mind when people think of energy efficiency, smart grids, and energy storage. When they think of clean hydrogen, fuel cell technologies, bioenergy, or when they talk about small modular reactors and carbon capture and storage. The good news is we, all of us here, are skating to where the puck is going. Combating climate change, ensuring our continued prosperity, making sure no one is left behind. This is our mission, and this is the group to deliver it. I believe that. Thank you.
Thanks to the distinguished representative of Canada. Now I give the floor to Ecuador. Sir, you have the floor.
Soy Hernando Merchan,
I'm
viceministro de
Hernando
Electricidad y
Merchan. I'm
Energía
Vice
Renovable del
Minister
Ecuador.
for
Desde Quito,
Electricity
mitad del
and
mundo,
Renewable Energy
y
in
a
Ecuador
nombre
from
del Gobierno
Quito,
Nacional y del
at
Ministerio
the
de
center
Energía
of
y
the world,
Recursos
and on
Naturales no
behalf
Renovables,
of our government
saludo a
and the
quienes
Ministry of
participan
Energy
de
and
la
Renewable Sources of
11ª
Energy. I would like
Asamblea de IRENA.
to congratulate you for
Como
holding
responsable de la
this
política energética
virtual
del Gobierno Nacional del
11th General
Ecuador,
Assembly
me
of IRENA.
siento
I am
honrado de
responsible
participar en
for
este
energy
encuentro
policy in
internacional
Ecuador, and it is
y
as such
ratificar
a
al
great honor
mundo
for
la
me to
certeza de
take
que,
part at this international
junto a los
gathering.
sistemas sanitarios
I
de cada
would
país,
like to
el
confirm
factor
that
energético y su
the
continuidad ha permitido
energy
enfrentar la
element and its
pandemia del
continuity,
COVID-19
along with the
y
health
mitigar
sector, of
sus
course, have allowed
devastadores
us
efectos
to
en las
face up
economías
to
del
this
mundo y en la
COVID-19
estabilidad
pandemic and
emocional
try
de la
and
humanidad,
mitigate the
especialmente entre las
disastrous
comunidades
impact it
menos
has had on
favorecidas.
world stability,
El
especially
Ecuador
amongst
mantiene firmes sus
the most
compromisos,
impoverished segments
el
of
Acuerdo de
society.
París, las
Ecuador
contribuciones
will
determinadas
stick
a
to its
nivel
commitments
nacional,
in the
los
Paris
objetivos de
Agreement and
desarrollo sustentable
NDCs,
y la
as well as
descarbonización de su
SDGs,
economía
and the
han determinado sus
decarbonization
prioridades
of
de
our
desarrollo
economy.
económico y
That
crecimiento
determines
social.
our
En
social
los
and
últimos 4
economic
años ha logrado
policies.
sostener su
In the
demanda de
past
energía
4
con
years,
más
we've
del
managed to
90% de
maintain
hidroelectricidad.
energy supply
Paralelamente,
using
y luego de
90%
una enriquecedora etapa en la
hydroelectricity,
determinación del
hydropower.
potencial de
We
recursos
have
solares,
managed to
eólicos y
determine our solar
geotérmicos,
potential,
ha
our
elaborado
wind
nuevos
and
proyectos
geothermal
con
potential
estas
too.
fuentes
And on that
primarias,
basis,
a fin
we
de
have
reducir la
drawn up
dependencia
new
de la
projects
generación
using those
térmica
energy
que
sources in
utiliza
order to
motores de
reduce
combustión interna.
internal
El
combustion
archipiélago de Galápagos,
motors and models
patrimonio
based
natural
on
de la
those
humanidad,
motors. We
a
have the
mediano plazo
Galapagos
estará libre
archipelago
de
in Ecuador.
combustibles
It's
fósiles
world cultural heritage, and it will be free of fossil fuels very soon. This year, we're going to start building a PV plant of 1,200 megawatts, a wind farm too, and for the Galapagos Islands, a photovoltaic plant using batteries of 14 megawatts. We will, from here to 2030, increase our national potential with an additional 5,000 megawatts of clean and renewable energy. None of this would be possible without long-term agreements between the state and its policies and the private sector. The private sector has contributed financially when it comes to funding infrastructure in the energy sector. There is cooperation between the public and the private sector, and this means we can use advanced technology, and we can also educate new generations. We can invest strategically speaking, and it allows for greater political and legal certainty. So political decisions are based on an energy transition. This will help strengthen economic recovery, will further dynamize sustainability, and will help establish a roadmap on the path to decarbonization and tackling climate change. It is clear that the future of energy is based on sustainability. We need new, innovative, more efficient technologies in order to use renewable primary sources of energy. Energy will help us when it comes to looking after our environment, when it comes to safeguarding the health of our people, combating asymmetries, hunger, poverty, and inequalities in terms of access to electricity worldwide. We need also to train leaders that will help push forward the necessary change and will motivate their communities to take an active part in this new era, which is presenting challenges never before seen in the history of mankind. I would like to take advantages of this opportunity to invite all member states of IRENA to continue deploying their greatest efforts together with the agency in the field of renewable energy in order to strengthen the energy sector worldwide. Thank you.
Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Italy. Sir, you have the floor.
Director General, dear Francesco, dear colleagues, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for the commitment that IRENA demonstrated during such a difficult pandemic crisis. Producing our high-quality analysis, building partnerships and projects, and boosting intergovernmental cooperation is now more than ever essential, and IRENA confirmed to be able to advance programmatic activities and engaging with its members during this challenging time. Italy is very proud to be among the most committed member countries in the agency. We sit in the Council, we contribute to specific programs and initiatives. In particular, the Italian cooperation contributes to the Climate Investment Platform and to the Desert to Power initiative. We participate to all of the collaborative platforms, and we co-chair the one on offshore renewables and ocean energies. We regularly intervene in IRENA seminars and workshops. Italy is also very proud to speak anytime as an EU member state, one of the most ambitious in terms of clean energy transition and fight for climate. While the pandemic crisis and the economic slowdown have gravely tested the global energy security, in reality, in certain parts of the world, especially in Europe, we did not actually suffer from an energy crisis. It is due to the growing quota of renewable energy in our energy mix and to the energy efficiency measures implemented particularly in the industrial sector. Renewable energy proves to be a quintessential factor of energy security, energy access, and economic resiliency and growth. The benefits for the entire Italian economy generated by the overall investment in renewable sources and efficiency corresponds to almost 3 billion euros over the last years. Not by chance, Italy ranks 8th worldwide as per renewable energy installed capacity. Our country is committed to reach a carbon neutral economy by 2050. In this perspective, we are finalizing our long-term strategy, which will build upon the already existing National Integrated Plan for Energy and Climate, which sets tangible intermediate targets to 2030 in line with EU objectives. 30% of renewables on total growth, final consumption, and 55% in the electricity sector, starting from the current 34%. We are actually working to set higher objectives in line with the growing and accelerated ambitions at the EU at the global level. We believe that the synergies between governments, the private sector, and the international organization are all the more indispensable to fulfill our common goals. In Italy, for instance, we have the world's largest private renewable operator, Enel. In addition, in these very days, another Italian leading energy company, Eni, will sign an MOU with IRENA aimed at scaling up renewables in those countries which still rely excessively on fossil fuels. Another leading company, Snam, will be contributing to the ministerial meeting on pathway to decarbonization through green hydrogen. As you know, dear colleagues, in 2021, Italy has the presidency of the G20 and will also be the partner of the UK in the COP26 on climate change. The G20 will be based on 3 pillars: people, planet, prosperity. In this respect, Italy profoundly relies on IRENA cooperation, especially in 3 important topics: oceans, marine energy and offshore renewables, sustainable hydrogen from renewable sources, and smart, sustainable energy cities. Besides, during the G20 presidency, we also have in-depth discussion on eradicating energy poverty and fostering universal access, thanks mainly to clean energy solutions. We will also focus on climate-friendly investments, where IRENA once more is in the front line of global action. I believe we have a significant and fruitful years ahead of us. I'm looking forward to join hands with IRENA member countries to recover better from the terrible pandemic that we have been experiencing, and to work together for the success of the Italian G20 and of the COP26, acknowledging the inextricable link between the clean energy transition and the fight for climate. I thank you all.
Thank you, Italy. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to the distinguished representative of Norway. Sir, you have the floor.
President, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused severe disruption to the energy sector. The pandemic is far from over. Many uncertainties remain, and crucial energy policy decisions have yet to be made. I commend IRENA for maintaining the focus on the work program and developing analytical products that have helped countries to design economic stimuli and recovery packages. You have clearly been a leading voice in renewables in these troubling times. To support IRENA's work, Norway has entered into a new voluntary contribution agreement, providing more than $2 million per year for 2020 to 21. COVID-19 affects all of us. Despite this, the renewables energy sector in Norway has fared relatively well. Through economic stimulus packages, support has been included to energy-related activities and new strategies. A few months ago, Norway launched a major carbon capture and storage project. The Longship project, a floating wind power plant, Hywind Tampen, is now under development to provide electricity to 2 oil field operations in the North Sea. Before the summer, the government will put forward a white paper to the parliament on long-term value creation and industrial development based on our energy resources, addressing, among others, offshore wind, hydrogen, and CCS. Increased use of electricity and hydrogen from clean energy sources is necessary in reaching the new climate targets. Norway has an excellent starting point. 73% of our total energy consumption is covered by renewable energy, in large part hydropower. As the transport sector is key in the transition to come, I am pleased to note that in 2020, as much as 54% of new cars sold in Norway were electric vehicles. Furthermore, the government just presented the proposed path on how to reach Norway's 2030 climate targets. A key proposal is to gradually raise taxes on greenhouse gas emissions to about 190 euros per ton CO2 equivalent by 2030. Finally, Norway is honored to be nominated to the Council for the next 2 years. We are looking forward to be a constructive partner in moving IRENA's work forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Norway. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to the distinguished representative of Azerbaijan. Sir, you have the floor.
Dear President of the Assembly, Minister Teresa Ribera, distinguished heads of delegations, dear Director General Francesco La Camera, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the delegation of Azerbaijan, I'm pleased to greet all delegations to the 11th session of the IRENA Assembly and express my hope that our deliberations will generate new opportunities for increased cooperation among IRENA member states. It's evident that the world is slowly but surely moving towards energy transition and green energy. There is a growing consensus among IRENA member states on the special and important role the renewable energy can play vis-à-vis the conventional energy resources. The COVID-19 pandemic and ensuing economic crisis have taken a heavy toll on the energy sector worldwide. At the same time, global growth outlook for renewables remains intact, and governments across the world keep coming up with ever-increasing ambitions on renewables and clean energy investments. Governments and international stakeholders should not forget about policy implications of climate concerns and sustainable energy transitions. Azerbaijan joined global efforts on combating climate change via submission of its ambitious national and determined contribution, targeting 35% reduction in the level of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. Because of the use of modern technologies in electricity production, reconstruction of transmission lines and distribution networks, the greenhouse gas emissions in Azerbaijan fell significantly between 1990 and 2020. Today, per capita greenhouse gas emissions are much lower in energy-rich Azerbaijan compared to other developing countries and even developed states. The greenhouse gas emissions have been reduced to 70% of the level of the 1990s, despite the significant economic growth for the last decades. IRENA Renewable Readiness Assessment Report 2019 outlined vast potential for renewable energy development in Azerbaijan, with excellent wind and solar resources and significant prospects for biomass, geothermal, and hydropower. This potential is roughly estimated at around 27,000 megawatt, including 23,000 megawatt for solar and 3,000 megawatt for wind. Azerbaijan has set an ambitious target to increase the share of renewables in total installed capacity to 30% by 2030. In order to attract private investments and facilitate large-scale projects, the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan signed a decree for setting up a favorable investment climate for renewables in May 2019. In addition, during the same year, an interagency commission was established to implement pilot projects in the field of renewables. On the legislation side, several energy laws are under preparation. Draft laws on the use of renewable energy sources in power generation, on efficient use of energy resources and energy efficiency, as well as standard power purchase agreement for renewable energy have been initiated and developed over the last 2 years. The draft law on the use of renewable energy sources in power generation is expected to provide additional concessions on tax and duties, guaranteed tariffs, off-taker obligations, and other support mechanisms for potential investors, including foreign direct investments. The project, entitled Support for the Implementation of Renewable Energy Auctions in Azerbaijan, is being implemented with the assistance of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development to organize auctions, universally accepted tool for deployment of renewables. All those steps are aiming to establish transparent and predictable market rules for investors, domestic and foreign alike, in order to attract more private financing to the sector. As a result, in December 2020, the agreements on wind power plant project with a capacity of 240 megawatt were signed between the government of Azerbaijan and Hydropower of Saudi Arabia. Implementation agreement has been signed with Masdar of the United Arab Emirates to develop and finance 230 megawatt solar photovoltaic project, and we are hoping to sign investment agreements by March 2021. We are continuing negotiations with other investors for new and promising projects. Distinguished participants, recent liberation of long-time occupied territories of Azerbaijan open new opportunities for sustainable development in the region. Strong political will, relevant government programs, and substantial potential of the liberated areas for sustainable energy will be major driving forces for the transformation of the occupied zone into a green energy zone. Upcoming large-scale projects for the transformation of the energy systems in these areas through the application of state-of-the-art technologies will provide ample opportunities for private investors and international financial institutions. We will be opening to potential partnerships and have already started a direct dialogue with ARENA. In conclusion, I would like to express my hope that decisions and recommendations we will adopt during the Assembly may serve as a message of solidarity that ARENA member states are committed to contribute to the global energy transition process. I wish the Assembly fruitful discussions and every success in its work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Azerbaijan. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Abdesalam Mohamed Saleh, Minister of Petroleum, Mining and Energy of Mauritania. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. سيدة تيريسا ريبيرا رئيسة الدورة 11 للجمعية العامة للوكالة الدولية للطاقة المتجددة إيرينا، السادة والسيدات في الوزراء،
Mr. Francisco La Camara, the Director General of IRENA, ladies and gentlemen, I want first of all to especially thank the IRENA and the Director General, Mr. Francisco La Camara, for their continuous efforts in order to assure the renewable expansion of the world in spite of all the difficulties faced, especially due to the COVID crisis. I would like also to thank the UAE as the host country for their continuous support to the IRENA and to our countries. As you know, the development of the renewable energy is important to face the different climatic changes and the different environmental challenges. The renewables is a very important promoter of the national economy and to face the socioeconomic challenges. The Islamic Republic of Mauritania is adopting and supporting the policies of IRENA in order to promote the energy transition. Our national strategy is working on providing energy with comprehensive coverage of all citizens in order to provide electricity for all. Such objectives are faced through a strategy based on using all type of resources, including the renewables as solar and wind energies, in order to reach 60% of energy through renewables by 2030. And also to use small grids for remote areas and to assure the electricity connectivity with neighboring countries to cover the shortages. Mauritania is one of the countries having dispersion of its population in different, all over the country in small population concentration, which affects the efforts to create electricity. And at present, we are studying the coverage of the urban areas using renewables as the most important source of development. We, in our country, we are starting a new policy in order to adopt the necessary legal measures in order to facilitate the contribution of the private sector in providing such networks. And through our national program, we will assure the contribution of all citizens and comprehensive coverage of the country. And we hope for the constructive cooperation of IRENA and its continuous support. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Mauritania. I see no more requests for the interventions. So now I invite the Director General to address any issues raised and provide overall reflections on the interventions. I also take the opportunity to greet distinguished Director General La Camera, because I didn't have the opportunity to do so. And I appreciate this opportunity to co-chair the floor. Thank you, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And first, I wish to thank you for your work in chairing this meeting, and naturally also our Madam President, Madam Rivera. I think that my general understanding is a very positive appreciation of the member states on the work of the arena, of the secretariat, and the people here in the agency. I acknowledge that the recognition that also in these very difficult circumstances, we have been provided to overcome the difficulties and fulfill our duty and continuously support our membership in their work. It's also always fascinating for me listening to voice coming from different interests, different regions, but all together working for a better environment, for a more modern energy system, a system that energy system that met the fit, the 21st century, and the need of our and the future generation. So I will stop here for the moment. I also wish to, if you allow me, to thank the people that is working behind the scene on this General Assembly, the interpreters that has allowed us to stay a little bit longer than usually, and naturally the people working on all the setting and the technology that allow us to work efficiently in this afternoon or evening or morning, depends on where you are. So I'm looking forward to the continued discussion tomorrow. And again, thanks to you, Vice President, for your work.
Thank you, Director General, for your kind words. And also I join you on thanking Spain for the opportunity for us to share this assembly. Distinguished delegations and colleagues, we have now reached the end of our deliberations for this evening. The assembly will resume tomorrow at 10 hours Gulf Standard Time. We will continue with member interventions, followed by the ministerial meeting on national energy planning and implementation for fostering energy transition. Starting at 15 hours Gulf Standard Time, and the ministerial meeting on scaling up finance for renewables starting at 18 hours GST. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all and have a good day. Thank you.